Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. And we're back after a bit of a hiccup. We're back with Phantasm 3. It's going to be very weird if you're not really following my releases and you get Phantasm Revisited and then 3. I've already done 2 because it's stupid uploading. So, Phantasm 3 came out in 1994, but chronologically it takes place 2 years after the second one. We'll talk about the timeline here in a minute. But, Coscarelli, he wanted to do another one. Universal said, hey, we're not going to give you money for it, but we'll distribute it if you make it. You make it, we'll distribute it, but we ain't giving you no money. So he had to do it himself. And, there's a lot of desert stuff in this movie. Let me tell you something. I thought that every one of these after 2 sucked. But this one's not bad. This one's not bad. I liked it. Let me talk through it. And because usually I don't really know my score, except for Night Swim. That was the only one where I watched it and went, that's a middle of the road movie. I knew right away. But sometimes, usually I talk through the movie and I figure out my score then. So we have 2 years after the events. We pick up right away, but then we cut to 2 years later. And Reggie is now our main character, basically. Mike is around, but the tall man gets him, and Reggie has to track him down with some new allies. And, it's a road movie. Which all these end up being. It makes sense when you have little budget. You want to sort of take it on the road and do an abandoned. Look at Marble Hornets. A lot of their stuff was in abandoned buildings or whatever houses that the people lived at because it was cheaper, right? So yes. So to start off the movie, we get flashbacks to tell us the story of the first film and parts of the second film, kinda. But right away we get a no moment because they flash back to when Reggie says, "Oh, Jody died in a car wreck," and then they show a car wreck, but it's the car wreck from when the Jawa was chasing Mike and Jody in the car, and he shot him and he ran off the road. And yeah, that's not the right car wreck. We never saw Jody's car wreck. And then we cut to footage of the second film, but only of Reggie and Liz fighting the tall man. And Liz sticks that thing in and he turns on the acid and it melts him. And then we cut to footage of him getting into the car with Alchemy and doing the thing, pull the hair, and then it shows the ending of the last one. When he comes out, he's less wounded somehow. And now they've added a Michael Baldwin in for a quick insert shot of him in the back of the hearse. And instead of them being pulled through the window, the hearse takes off and then fucking explodes. And when Reg gets there, Liz is dead because the studio mandated her, so we don't need her anymore. Fuck her. She's dead. Which, I understand why Coscarelli did it, but it kind of makes her whole storyline in the second one completely pointless, if you think about it, because the whole movie was about Mike trying to find her. And now, Coscarelli saying, well, the studio mandated her, I don't want her, kill her off, completely puts that whole movie as pointless. And I really like that movie. It's my favorite one. You see why I compared this to Alien 3? This is not as bad as Alien 3, because Alien 3, oh boy. But, no, but that's, there was a reason for this. There was a reason for this. The studio was to blame for that one. Coscarelli had a reason, because the studio was to blame for the character being in there. But for Alien 3, that was the studio. Whatever. So yeah, the tall man shows up and he wants Mike for some reason. But Reggie, he shows a grenade. I'm gonna use this remote grenade and says, "I don't want him in pieces. That's the only way you're gonna get him. You can keep him for now." So now we flash to 2 years later. By the way, this whole opening was narrated by Mike. Now it's 2 years later. He's in the hospital with some kind of face mask thing on. Now, so here, the hell was that? Here is where we get to the timeline. First film takes place in 1979. I looked it up. The second one takes place 7 years later, so that's 1986. Despite coming out in 1988, it takes place in 86. This is 2 years later, which puts it in 88. So we're in 1988 here. I was confused because at one point, Reggie tells Jody, yes, Jody, we'll get there. Oh, you've been dead for 10 years. So it'd be more like 9, but yeah. But he looks about 15 years older because it has been 15 years. So does Reg. And they say it's been 2 years since then. He looks, well, not, he looks about 6 years older because that's how many years have passed. So, or not say 8 years since between, right? Because that was 88. So 99, 1991, 1993, 94. Yeah, 6 years. It was about 6 years older because that's how many times time has passed. And I don't know about Michael Baldwin because he looks younger when they show the thing, but then he looks older when he's walking around. So, Mike's having a dream where he sees Jody, and Jody says that, Mike, don't go into the light. Don't go into the light. And the tall man is there, and he wakes up, and then these ghouls, which they call phantasms, I guess, one of them shows up to attack him, but he's able to fight him off with Reggie's help. But the tall man shows up and takes him, so now Reggie's on his own. Kinda. Because they got a floating ball that is Jody, I guess. They explain it, but it's confusing. But Jody is in one of the floating balls that's silver, and the tall man chars it. It turns black, but it's with Reggie. I guess they do get away to a hotel, but the tall man finds them anyway. Or Reggie's house, I don't know. So now he's trying to find him. He gets his Amikuda, and he meets this woman. Of course, Reggie's first instinct is to try to lay her, but she has a gun. And it turns out she's with these other two punks who are... Their motivation is confusing. They are robbing people and killing them to take their money. The place is a barren wasteland. Banks are just laying there with money inside of it. Why are you robbing people? Also, if everything is barren and a wasteland and the money is sitting there in banks, it means no one cares because money doesn't matter anymore. So what's the point? Well, they lock Reggie in the car and come across this house with this little kid named Tim. Tim lives, and he home alones them to death, and then releases Reggie, and it just becomes a road movie with Tim replacing Mike while they try to find Mike. Mike's not in a lot of this movie, and I don't know if that has to do with the fact that Michael Baldwin cannot act. I mean, yeah. But along the way, they find a mausoleum where we meet Rocky and her friend Aisha. Doesn't matter. She's killed off right away by one of the orbs. And when Reggie, obviously trying to get laid, offers Rocky to join them, she's like, nah. And then they take off, and he lets the kid drive for some reason. I don't know what is with this franchise and the kid's driving, but that the kid is driving. But they run into Rocky, who decides to join them. And then they get a motel, and Reggie orders only one queen-size bed, and says, "Hey, they only have a queen-size bed, so kid will have to sleep out here." Because he wants to get laid. But Rocky has his number, because after convincing the kid to stay out there in the cold, he tries to hook up with her. She's like, "Only one way I do this." And she handcuffs him, and then says, "Night-night. Night-night." And, yep, he's stuck handcuffed for the rest of the night. Yep. Sure. What happens next? I'm there. So, we don't get much of the tall man in this either. I feel like he's sidelined because Mike is sidelined because he has Mike for most of this time. But yeah. I think something happens where they're forced to leave the hotel. Or they're driving. Oh, I think they drive the next day, night, or something, and the 3 zombie people find them. I think no, that's not till later. I'm out of order here, but they end up camping in the middle of nowhere because that's all they could afford. And it's here that we get something that's very convenient. So Jody shows up in Reggie's dream, where he is, of course, dreaming about having sex with Rocky. And okay, it's nice to have tits in a movie, but something occurred to me while watching this scene. They told this woman that we want you to do a nude scene. And you're not really having sex with Reggie, it's in his dream. Which makes it all the more gratuitous. Because it's not for a love-making scene, a 2 love interests getting together. No, it's for some pervert's fantasy. I don't know, but he's, going to town on her, doggy style, when Jody... I like the response. Jody shows up, he's just sitting in the chair, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Jody, what's going on, man?" As he's, and he's like, "Reg, I need to talk to you, man." By the way, after someone mentioned, back towards the beginning of the movie, when he meets the kid knows him for all of 5 minutes, and he's calling him Reg. Oh, and Reggie also tries to pawn him off on this children's shelter thing, but he sneaks back into the car. So Jody leads him into this desert that supposedly, because, "Oh, we're in your head. I think I came here as a kid." You went on a vacation to a desert as a kid? Okay. And so he takes him through a portal to the tall man's lair, where the tall man has Mike in some sort of box. Man in a box. And they're able to free him, and he's happy to see Jody. And is it here we find out what the truth is? I think it's here. Well, I'll just say it now anyway. That this is confusing. They're adding to the lore. So, not only when they shrink the dead people into Jawas do they do that, they take out the brains, and the brains go in the orbs. So, essentially, the Jawas are the bodies, his slaves, and then you have the brains are in the orbs. The orbs are essentially the people. It's like the Toglophane from Doctor Who. That's literally what it is, but the Toglophane will come later. Yes. Incidentally, wouldn't it be something if Angus Scrimm played the Master? Be interesting. Just saying. But, yeah, so they save Mike, and then Reggie wakes up in the desert. Jody is just there, because he was the ball floating on his head. And he opens a portal, and Mike comes through. So everything that just happened. And they can't... Jody can't... Because the tall man can still control them. So Jody can't close the portal. So Reggie does the thing he did in the last one, or the first one, where he puts his hand on the thing and it shuts the portal. cutting out the tall man's hands, which we know doesn't work. It comes with creatures, and they essentially destroy him. So now they're off again. They commandeer a hearse to drive somewhere. And, like, how many hours? I don't know. Okay. We get a chase, the show, because I think this is where the chase with the zombified people is. It's either here or it was earlier. It happens. And it's fine, but those things keep coming back, because of course they do. And Mike has the bright idea to hide in a giant mausoleum. Which I think where those creatures took them after them still. And of course it doesn't work. Mike tries to communicate with Jody and finds the tall man. Of course he does. While Reggie still tries to hook up with, but she's like no. As they battle those things, just like he's laying there and he thinks that Rocky's going down on him, right? But it's the zombie lady, and he's like, and the kid gets captured, and Mike tells the kid, "You gotta tell Reg, there's thousands of them." And and this is where we get a twist. There's something with Mike. He's like, "You have to release yourself from this mortal form," and I'm like, "You're like what?" And so I should mention, this is where they retcon stuff. Because, like, when they get... I mentioned this before, but... I didn't mention what they... retcon. They get to the mortuary, and they find a vat of nitrous oxide, of coal... What's it called? Liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen, cold. Apparently people are freezing themselves. They don't have that technology now. They thought that hyperfreeze would work then. I don't know. But that's where Mike realizes, that's it. The cold. It's his weakness. Despite it's never what it looked like. It's almost as if he's like incensed. He's happy with it. He's getting pleasure from it. But no, it's his weakness. So eventually they lock him in the freezer, and a giant gold sphere pops out of his head, which apparently is his true form. What was that worm thing that popped out of his head in the last one? The last one or the first one? What did that thing was? I think it was the last one. I don't know. But this begins a fight between Reggie and the gold ball, and Rocky and the gold ball as they fight it. Meanwhile, Mike realizes he's got one of those gold things in his head, and he's got yellow blood now. Somehow. So is he one of where the tall man comes from too? Because the fourth one gives us the origins of the tall man, and that's not going to make any much more sense, I don't think. But yeah, and then Mike's eyes grow gold and he runs off. And he's like, I gotta go, Reg, I gotta go. And he runs off. And then Jody says some cryptic shit, then turns into a ball and flies off. And Rocky decides to take off. And, in a hearse. And the kid's like, oh, Mike, maybe you want me to say something. There's thousands of them. Thousands of what? And, turns out it's thousands of silver balls. That's what the tall man was creating an army, and they all attack Reg, and then the kid is thrown through the window, because all these movies have to end with someone being pulled through glass. Because the tall man is still alive, I guess. Because earlier I forgot to mention the opening scene. After they melted him, he just walked through the portal again, and then threw his dead body in there. Maybe destroying the portal is the way to do things. I don't know. That's Phantasm 3. And, I gotta say, even though I have my issues with it, I still enjoyed it. I might have enjoyed it more than the first one, and that's tough to say. I've had to review that 3 times now, twice within the last 2 days. But I do like that movie, but it's never been one of those. I feel like the first Phantasm for me is like one of these franchises where the first one's not the best for me. Like Friday the 13th, or even Nightmare on Elm Street. As much as I love Nightmare on Elm Street, I prefer the third one. Maybe that might change when I do the revisited. Who knows? It probably won't. And the first Evil Dead. I feel like the Evil Dead is meh compared to the rest of the films in the franchise. Even the newest ones I didn't particularly care for. I still feel that's a little bit better than the original. Well, that I know. So I would say that Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, is pretty good. So, what are your thoughts on Phantasm 3? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.